I boarded the last midnight train with a single, desperate purpose. In my coat pocket, a tarnished silver locket felt as heavy as a tombstone, its cold weight a constant reminder of the stakes. My sister, Lena, was fading. Not like a person dying, but like a photograph left in the sun, her colors bleaching out day by day. It had started with memories, fraying at the edges. She'd forget a childhood holiday, then the face of a friend, then what she had eaten for breakfast. Doctors called it a unique, aggressive form of early-onset dementia. I called it an erasure. I knew because sometimes, late at night, I could hear it on the baby monitor we kept in her room, a faint electrical static that hummed just beneath the silence. And within that static, a woman's soft, sorrowful whisper that wasn't hers. A ghost on the airwaves was methodically stealing my sister, one memory at a time, and I was the only one who seemed to notice. My frantic search through old family journals had given me one last, impossible hope. A great uncle, in a cryptic entry from the 1920s, wrote of a similar spiritual affliction that had befallen a distant cousin. He spoke of only one cure, a pact of remembrance, an offering to be made to the Finch family in the next town over. The offering was the locket in my pocket. I had to deliver it to the last remaining Finch before the final whisper claimed Lena forever. The train car was deserted, a long metal tube of flickering fluorescent lights and worn velour seats. My footsteps echoed unnaturally loud on the floor as the doors hissed shut behind me, sealing me in. I chose a seat by a rain-streaked window and watched the station platform slide away, a lonely island in a sea of night. The train picked up speed, the rhythmic clack-clack of the wheels a hypnotic mechanical heartbeat. And then I heard it. Another sound, trying to match that rhythm. A soft, deliberate footstep in the aisle behind me. I froze, my own heart seizing in my chest. I turned my head slowly, my eyes scanning the length of the empty car. There was nothing. Just rows of dark, glossy seats and my own pale, wide-eyed reflection in the window opposite me. I told myself it was just the train settling, a trick of acoustics in the empty space. But the feeling of being watched was immense. I took out the small digital recorder I'd brought, placing it on the seat beside me, its small red light a defiant spark against the oppressive gloom. The footsteps resumed, closer this time, with a soft, dragging quality, as if weighed down by a century of weariness. I didn't dare to turn around again. I just sat there, rigid, my hand clutching the locket in my pocket, its coldness a small anchor in a sea of impossible feelings. The train's intercom crackled, not with an announcement, but with a sharp spike of static, and within it, I heard a woman's sigh, the same tired, sorrowful sound from Lana's monitor. The ghost was not just at home. It was here with me on this train. The air grew cold. My breath fogged on the window. On the grimy seat in front of me, a message began to appear, traced in the thin layer of dust, as if by an invisible, trembling finger. 4 slow letters, H-E-L-P. This wasn't a threat. It was a plea. The echo that was haunting my sister was itself lost and in pain. My mission suddenly fractured. I wasn't just a courier trying to save Lena. I was now an investigator, tasked with solving a mystery a century old. I spent the next hour walking the length of the empty train, from car to car, my recorder held out like a divining rod. The footsteps followed, always just behind me, always just out of sight. In the last car, I found it. Tucked deep into the vinyl of a torn seat cushion was a folded envelope, yellowed and brittle with age. The handwriting was a shaky, elegant cursive. The letter was addressed to a Mr. Alastair Finch, the name from my great-uncle's journal. My blood ran cold. With trembling fingers, I read the letter. It was from a woman named Maria Finch, dated 1926. It was a love letter, full of hope, written to her brother. She was coming to meet him on this very train line to start a new life. "I will wait for you at the station," she wrote. "We can finally leave this sorrow behind." A letter that was never delivered. Maria Finch never made it off this train, and her echo, her desperate hope and sorrow, was still riding the rails, trapped between stations. It was her grief creating the static, her loneliness latching onto my sister's mind. To save Lena, I had to first save Maria. I now held two keys in my hands, the locket to appease the living, and Maria's unsent letter to give peace to the dead. The train's brakes hissed as we pulled into the next station, its lights cutting through the thick fog. The intercom crackled one last time, and a single clear whisper filled the car, a name I now understood: Alistair. The doors slid open, revealing a deserted, windswept platform and a choice. My journey had just become much more dangerous. I stepped out onto the cold concrete of the platform, the locket heavy in one hand, Maria's brittle letter in the other. A thick fog swirled around the station lights, muffling the world in a blanket of gray silence. The train did not wait. With a final mournful hiss, its doors slid shut, and it receded back into the night, leaving me utterly alone, stranded in a place that time had clearly forgotten. The station was a small wooden structure, its paint peeling, a single dim bulb casting a weak circle of light over a weathered bench. My mission felt impossible. How was I to find the descendants of a man from 1926 in a strange town in the middle of the night? I pushed open the door to the station's small, deserted waiting room. It smelled of dust and cold stone. On the wall, miraculously preserved behind a pane of grimy glass, was an old town directory and map from the mid-20th century. My heart leaped. I scanned the list of names, my finger tracing down the faded print until I found it. Finch, Alistair, 14 Sycamore Lane. It was just a few blocks away. The walk through the sleeping town was surreal. The fog was so thick, it felt like I was wading through a dream. The houses were dark, their windows like closed eyes. The only sound was my own footsteps on the wet pavement and the frantic, hopeful thrumming of my own heart. For Sycamore Lane was a small, well-kept house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, the only one with a single warm light glowing in the front window, as if someone were still waiting up. My hand trembled as I knocked on the door. The minutes stretched into an eternity. I was about to turn away, convinced it was a mistake, when the lock clicked and the door creaked open. The man who stood before me was ancient, his body frail, his face a roadmap of 100 years of sorrow. His eyes, though clouded with age, were sharp and intelligent. "Yes?" he asked, his voice a dry rustle of leaves. I'm looking for Alistair Finch," I stammered. The old man gave a slow, tired nod. "You have found him." I was speechless. It was him, the brother from the letter. He had waited all this time. I explained my impossible story, my sister, the static, the whispers, the letter I found trapped in the train. He listened with a profound, unbroken stillness, his expression never changing. When I finished, I handed him the yellowed envelope. He took it with a hand that shook as much as mine. He read his sister's words, written nearly a century ago. A single perfect tear traced a path down his wrinkled cheek and fell onto the page. "There was an accident that night," he whispered, his voice thick with an ancient grief. "A minor derailment a few miles from the station. They told me her car was lost. I came here every night for a year. I waited. I never knew if I never knew." He looked up at me, his eyes clear for the first time. She was coming home. All this time, she was just trying to come home. He clutched the letter to his chest. "Thank you." As he spoke those words, a change occurred. The oppressive, sorrowful weight that had clung to me on the train, the very static in my soul, simply dissolved. It was like a pressure I didn't know I was feeling had been released. The air felt lighter. I knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic, that the echo had found its peace. Maria was home, and Lena was safe. I left Alistair Finch sitting in his armchair by the window, reunited with his sister's last words after a lifetime of waiting. I walked out into their pre-dawn mist, my own mission complete. The world felt quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. It was peaceful. I caught the first morning train back. As the sun rose, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, I looked at my reflection in the window. It was just me, alone. The haunting was over, but I had been changed. I now understood that the world is filled with undelivered messages, unheard whispers trapped in the static of tragedy, just waiting for someone to tune in to the right frequency. These stories are all around us, clinging to old houses, forgotten roads, and lonely midnight trains. If you felt the rails hum with the echoes of this story, if you believe that every lost voice deserves to be heard, leave a like. It's a quiet signal that proves you are out there, listening, and subscribe to WhisperTales. Because together, we can continue to trace these faint signals through the dark and make sure no story is ever truly lost.